just basically knowing yourself. That's the most important thing with martial arts. Martial arts is about self-discovery and self-mastery. It's not about being better than other people. It's not.
We got Connor Berry, professional MMA fighter out of New England from Mass. Connor, welcome on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Giuliano. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad I got to get you on as a guest. I've been a big fan of yours as a fighter and as a person. You've come up to Kaze a couple times, so I like the connection that we've made. And recently, you've also opened up your new gym, Imperium Martial Arts.
Hell yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your decision to open up your gym, your own gym?
Yeah. Basically, for a long time, I guess I had always had like this dream, and I had like a little club for a little while. I was doing a little subleasing from a really, really small studio, and it didn't work out necessarily in the way that I had hoped it to, and I realized going into it how difficult it is to open a martial arts gym, and it kind of deterred me from it a little bit. And towards the end of my fighting career, I suppose, I kind of had like this, sort of like it's like an identity crisis, I guess. I'm sure, it's common with fighters where your whole life you just kind of put everything into fighting, right? And it comes out to it, and one day we realize, or you don't, I don't know, but one day we realize, hey, I put so much time into this, and I'm not making any money, and first and foremost, like, we all got to take care of ourselves, and it's, if you're fighting for your life every couple months, it's not the healthiest thing for our brains to be going into, So I had and not even just taking head damage, but I mean, you're just constantly in a fight or flight state. It's hard to really see the bigger picture with things. Because you're just so narrow focused on like this one event, this fight, I'm sure it's just happened with you, or, like the second that fight gets announced, the only thing on your mind, you're up 3 in the morning every night. You can't sleep thinking about it. You're shadow boxing at 4 in the morning.
No, that's I mean, you how long did you actually, like, what age did you start your like first amateur fight, and then for how long? When did you take your last fight?
So I had my first amateur fight, I think it was like 4 or 5 days after my 18th birthday. So it was like, honestly, as soon as I could. I signed up for it when I was 17. Before that, I had really, really wanted to fight when I was in high school. So I had an older brother at the time, and well, when I was younger, I had tried to basically steal his identity and fight under his name. Don't tell anybody though. Saying it on the podcast, but yeah, I basically tried to fight as my brother. I was like, all right, like, let's set up a fight. And I remember setting up a fight, being like, oh, I'm going to be Joe Barry. I was going to use his ID and stuff, and it never ended up going through, thank God, because I probably would have got suspended and never been able to fight again after that.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, but yeah, I basically had started, competing around that age, and I was very active up until, I think my last fight was 3 years ago now. It seems like a long time.
Yeah. How old are you now?
I'm 29.
Okay, so you're still very young,
Yeah.
Just so a lot of fight experience on the body. From 18 to 29, that's a lot of body damage that you've taken. I know you've had, like, didn't you break your arm during one fight, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was my last one.
Okay, yeah.
And it was kind of one of those things. It's like, hey, towards the end of that, I was like, well, shit, man. For one, it was like one of those fights, that I was really supposed to win. It was like, so it didn't really feel good to win it anyways. And it's just, when I broke my arm, I was like, holy shit! Like, if I lose to this guy, this is really bad. So I was like, there's no fucking way I'm doing that. So I ended up winning that fight, and afterwards had surgery, and I didn't really get much for it. And the same with my other fights. Like even the more bigger profile fights that I had, I never got paid anything worth it. I get
Yeah.
paid what I would make in a week right now.
Yeah.
And it would be months and months of stress and training, and I
Mhm.
love it too in some ways, right?
Yeah.
Because when I didn't have that, it was hard for me to like get into that focus mindset. Like, what do I
Hmm.
need to do? What do I, well, at least when you have a fight, there's only one thing you need to do.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. You only have one thing to worry about, one guy. Um, when I don't, it's like, oh, all right, I have a million things to worry about. There's more important things. Finances and emotional health and physical
Yeah.
health, and it's all part of the journey, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you decided to open up your own gym, so now you train fighters, right? Is that kind of
Hmm.
you want to be a more coaching role rather than a fighting role?
Yeah, honestly, I felt like at one point, and this is it was hard for me to, and I'm not gonna say I'm fully retired. Like, there's still parts of me that really wants to get back in there and do it,
Yeah.
and hey, when the time's right, I'm still young. I could do it. I just, you know, it has to be the right fight, the right reasons, um, and I definitely don't plan on like going to the UFC anymore or anything like that. It's not even
Yeah.
something I want to anymore. Like at a certain period of time, it was, but
Hmm.
uh, at this point, I don't need it. I don't see any reason that I would want to like dedicate my whole life into doing something like that. But
Yeah.
I digress a little bit. I kind of forgot the question you asked me.
So your goal is to like train like young fighters now to kind of like
Yeah,
bring them
yeah,
up
yeah,
now to
yeah.
share
I
your
love doing
knowledge.
that, man. It keeps me involved with it, and I guess the big thing with training the fighters is I gained so much experience and like knowledge and
Hmm.
wisdom throughout that journey that I felt like, hey, if I were to just give it all up and just pursue my art or tattooing or something
Hmm.
like that, like, yeah, I would have had those lessons that I know myself,
Yeah.
but I would have felt like a lot of that would have gone to waste.
Yeah.
Um, and I put so much time into it that uh, whenever you I think whenever you like waste your past like that, you have like this guilty feeling like, hey, I'm just throwing away years of my life. It's
Hmm.
like breaking up with a long term girlfriend or something. You're just like it's like, all right, that's over, like all that time was like gone,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, I understand it helps me in other sorts of ways, but I wanted to make like a pact with my past self and say, hey, this was not for nothing. Like, we can help people with this. We can help people
Yeah.
grow and achieve their goals, and
Hmm.
in the process, help me out too as my school grows.
Yeah. I've been seeing a lot of your gym Imperial martial arts on like some from New England fight cards lately. I saw last past Saturday. I saw you in attendance. You were with what was your fighter's name?
Kyle Warren.
Kyle Warren. Yeah, and you
Hmm.
won. He had a good fight for
Hmm.
NEF. Yeah. So, um, talk to me about that fight. Getting him ready for that.
That was great, man. Kyle's a really good kid. He's got a heart for days. So I was talking about it yesterday. I remember him having his first fight, and I was like, all right, he's close to where he needs to be, and I was, when it first happened, we were part of Defensive Edge at the
Hmm.
time, and the other coaches were like, I think he's ready, and I was kind of on the line. I was like, yeah, maybe I would wait a little bit more, and
Hmm.
they thought he was ready. He was ready to do it. He went through the camp, and by the end of the camp, I was fully confident in him. I saw how much improvement he made over those 2 months. Just having
Hmm.
that like deadline, that date,
Yeah.
it kind of forces you to to train harder. So he didn't win his first fight, and it's not. I mean, he did good. He showed heart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he got put to sleep in a choke. Didn't tap. You know, you can tell he really wanted it. You know,
Yeah.
and that's all I really want to see. You know, I'd rather see somebody that doesn't necessarily have all the technical skills at first, but has the will and the heart and the perseverance to push through these hard moments. You
Yeah.
know, because that stuff is hard to teach, or you know, it's a big mental thing. You have to really change a lot of things in order to get to somebody with that mindset. Technique is easy to
Yeah.
teach, at least in terms of,
Yeah.
you know, it's easier.
Yeah.
So the second fight came around, same thing. Like, you know, we had a plan going into it. He had trained a shitload. He got so much better over the second camp too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like technically better. Comes to the other fight, and you know, he didn't perform in the way that he really wanted to or expected to.
Mm-hmm.
But I was happier for him having like a hard fight.
Yeah.
He won the first round, second round lost, third round it was like, you know, it could have gone either way, and
Yeah.
you know, you had to really want it. If just for 1 second in your head you said, "Hey, what am I doing this for?" It's all over. You lost.
Yeah.
You know. So he dogged it out, and I was really happy for him. It's definitely a big win for the gym.
Yeah. Do you have any more fighters on the rise? Any more fights coming up for anyone in your gym?
Yeah, I've been talking to Matt recently about getting some of our guys up on the next NEF card in Portland.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like we don't have a ton of fighters. It's not really, you know, I love working with fighters. It's great, but it's not really the purpose of the gym. You know, it's everybody's trying to improve themselves in other ways. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to help however people need to. So whatever their goals are, I'm here to help them. And yeah, I just I guess at the time we'll probably have like 3 or 4 people that will be trying to actively compete, and otherwise it's just, you know, jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that martial arts lifestyle.
Yep. Yeah. I remember briefly a couple minutes ago you mentioned your tattooing and painting. I've been seeing a lot of your stuff on Instagram. When did you start drawings and painting? Because you're really good at it. I've seen some of your paintings.
Thanks, man.
Cool stuff.
I guess part of it, like one of the big things is, like I had mentioned with that kind of like imposter syndrome type of thing I had for a while. As the first time I got hurt, I had surgery on my shoulder. I was out for a year, and this was my shoulder was pretty bad for my last 2 fights. Like it was dislocated fairly often in camp.
Yeah.
I remember it like really acting up for when I fought Joe Giannetti. And the whole camp, it was bugging me, and I was like, oh, you know, I ain't pulling out of this one. It's, you know, we had a couple fizzled bouts before that. One of them, I had torn my hamstring pretty bad, and the other one, he had ulcers, I think, the week of the fight, something like that. So it was like just a long time coming, and I was like, hey, you know what, my shoulder's fucked, but I gotta tough this one out.
Yeah.
So I did. Afterwards, I ended up getting the surgery. It was pretty brutal recovery. It was like a year.
Yeah.
I couldn't train at all, and that was my whole life. You know, the only thing I cared about was fighting the martial arts, and not being able to go to the gym for such a long amount of time. I could tell it wasn't going to be good for me.
Yeah.
So I needed to create like a positive outlet with it. And at the time, you know, I still had my right hand, so I was like, you know what, I gotta start getting these things off of my head and getting them into the world, you know, like just these ideas that I have, these things that I want to put out. And I started then. Once I got back into fighting again, I had a couple other fights. I stopped doing it altogether once my shoulder healed up a little bit. Then broke my hands in that fight, and once that that happened, I really started questioning, like, hey, if this is all I do, I'll never really get to the next level, like in
Yeah.
life. I
Yeah.
might get to the next level in fighting, but am I ever going to be financially stable? Am I ever going to be able to have my own house? Am I ever going to
Mm-hmm.
be able to, have my family and be relatively stable without, going crazy? So I spent that time, one, like, I got another job, so I had a regular person job for
Yeah.
like one of the first. I've had so many jobs, but I've never really hung around to many of them. And I was
Mm-hmm.
working at a school, so I was a school teacher.
Okay.
I was teaching at school. I fucking hated it. But I was teaching at school and doing the gym stuff, personal training classes at the other gym at the time,
Yeah.
and saved up enough. I got my condo. I had like this little sense of stability there. And when I had that, I knew that I just somewhere in my soul, I couldn't just like sell my soul and just work as a teacher or work as like I felt like I would lose whatever makes me unique inside.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, basically I had to keep creating in order to feel like I wasn't selling my soul.
Yeah.
So I was just painting and painting as much as I possibly could with all the work that I had going on. And that led me into tattooing. So
Yeah.
after that, I was like, hey, I fucking hate working in these school, and I don't want a corporate job, and I don't want any of
Yeah.
this lifestyle because it's not going to be good for me.
Yeah.
Um, so I got into tattooing, and that was like, all right, well, now I can do what I love to do, and get
Yeah.
paid to do it. And at the time, I was like, all right, this is fairly lucrative. I paid a lot of money for my tattoos, so I
Mm-hmm.
know. Uh,
Yeah.
I know that people are making decent enough money doing it. So I did that for the last. I've been doing it for probably about a year and a half right now. I still am active tattooing. I still try to
Mm-hmm.
get like two or three tattoos in a week if I can.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing it. It's fun. Um, but again, it's not something like by the end of that year, I still felt like unfulfilled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From doing the tattooing, I was a lot of it. I kind of went into it with some rose-colored glasses on, and I said, "All right, well, I'll just basically draw, and I'll get paid to do it." And it's not really
Mm-hmm.
like that. There's, your client always dictates what they want at the end of the day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tattoos I do that I love doing, and there's a lot of tattoos that I do not love
Yeah.
doing. um,
Do any of
and it
your
is what it is.
paintings like do you get inspired by fighting to draw, I don't know, something about fighting or mixed martial arts in any of your paintings? Because I don't think I've seen any like
Yeah.
fighting paintings. I've seen a lot of, I don't know, just abstract stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's kind of funny, dude, because it's actually like I haven't done anything with martial arts or fighting or anything
Mm-hmm.
within the painting, and I think subconsciously it was, you know, there were times that I hated fighting, and
Yeah.
I hated
Yeah.
it because like I mentioned before, like there's times that I just felt like I wasted all my fucking time doing it. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, damn, like if I had spent those 10,000 hours or more or whatever, it's definitely probably been more now, but at the
Mm-hmm.
time I was realizing it. If I spent all those hours, like, I don't know, to be a doctor, like I could be a doctor by now. My twin sister's a doctor,
Oh
and
wow.
and I feel like, like if I'd spent that time to do just about anything else, like,
Mm-hmm.
and I was as dedicated with my time and discipline as I was with fighting, then I could have done anything.
Yeah.
So I had kind of had a bad taste in my mouth for martial arts for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and I think art was a way to separate myself from that side of me, just to grow my identity
Yeah.
as a human past Connor Barry, the martial artist, or Connor Barry, the fighter. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm more than that, and I've known that I'm more than that, but I had to prove it to myself. Like, hey, if I invest my time into anything else, I could also grow in that too. And I was passionate about art, so
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of where it came into, and that's also why I think I haven't done anything related to martial arts yet, at least.
Yeah.
Because at the time, as starting as an artist, I it was kind of like a new life for me, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, here's a new
You didn't
version
want
of
to
myself.
associate the two together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so speaking about like the UFC, do you have any like when you were training? Did you have any fighters you looked up to who were in the UFC who you wanted to be like, or they recreate a style similar to theirs?
Um, there were certain like attributes of guys that I liked. You know, I always try to learn from people as much as possible, and try to create like my own spin on certain things too. I like to create, so that's
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think that's an important part of my game. Is just being able to be creative with things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm kind of weird with it. I haven't watched a UFC fight in years. I don't really know many of the people on the top 10 list anymore. You know,
Mm-hmm.
everybody in the gym always talks about it because it's, you know, everybody loves it. That's the reason why they're in the gym a lot of
Yeah.
times. And I don't have a TV. I don't watch sports. I've never watched sports. I don't know. I don't think I've ever watched a whole football game, or never watched a basketball game in my
Yeah.
life. You know, I just don't. I don't get it personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm so restless that it's like, if I feel like I'm wasting my time, I feel like I'm killing myself a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's
you know,
why I
honestly,
always like to stay busy because I feel like if I'm just kind of chilling out, then I'm just wasting my time. So I always like to keep myself busy. You know,
yeah,
that's kind of why I started this like podcast style. I just want to interview fighters and I don't know, use more of my time. use I
yeah.
don't know. Even though
No,
I already have
you're
a lot of
right,
my time
man.
taken up, you know, I want to keep using even more of my time. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, facts, dude. I mean, it's good to own it, man, too. And you know, like I'm sure it's more common than I think, but you know, I always, whenever I'm busy, I can be in like a flow state. You know,
Hmm.
I can meditate when I'm sparring or rolling. Like, it's a
Yeah.
very meditative experience for me. If I were to sit down and do nothing, oh my god, bro, it's the worst thing in the world. My brain
Yeah.
would go
Yeah.
nuts.
I know. I just can't stop moving when I sit still. It's always
Yeah.
something I got to do.
I
Um.
think that's a good thing, man. I think honestly, like not everybody has to sit down and just meditate in that way that, you know, people have like, oh, don't do anything, don't do, you know, like, be inactive, be passive. I don't think that's always the best move. You know, like,
Hmm.
we are on Earth for a very short time in the grand scheme of things, right? And I always feel like, you know, I can almost feel like the sands of time, like, just dripping into the other end of the hourglass, you know, and
Yeah.
you never get them back.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for like younger fighters coming up? Because now that you're a coach, obviously you probably see a lot more
Hmm.
fresh people who have like or who are starting from zero and you're building them up. Do you have any like advice for like younger fighters or anything who want to go like from amateur to pro to maybe I don't know the UFC or that higher level?
I think consistency is the biggest thing, man. I you know, in my head, I believe that, hey, if I had continued to fight like 2 times a year, you know, I would be in the UFC. Now, I don't
Hmm.
know if that's true or not.
Yeah.
You know, I think so in my head. I I know that there's a lot of highs and there's a lot of lows.
Yeah.
no matter what, and we do, the identity is a big thing. So when you say, "Hey, I'm a fighter, and that's all I do," and then you
Mm-hmm.
lose, you're kind of like, "All right, well, if all I am is a fighter, and I'm not even a good fighter, like I'm not even a good person, and I'm not even,
Yeah.
what is even the point?"
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like these little mental blocks that need to be overcome at certain points too. It takes years, and the biggest thing is just knowing yourself enough to know, number one, why are you fighting?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think that's huge, right? What's your why? Because I don't even know if my why was the right reason when I
Yeah.
initially got into it, and
Mm-hmm.
as I continued to fight, I really thought about that more often,
Yeah.
and I came out as I mean, I thought it was, hey, maybe this is just an ego thing,
Yeah.
uh, and a lot of people it is,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the ego is important, especially as a fighter. You do kind of need it. It's kind of like a protective mechanism that we have. Just it keeps us all alive. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
we're looking out for our best interests.
Yeah.
Uh, but it can be dangerous too. And you'll see guys, that keep going on when they should have quit a long time ago. That they're just
Yeah.
searching for something that isn't there,
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking outside of themselves for something that they really should be looking inside themselves for. So,
Yeah.
a lot of, I guess there's a lot of like spiritual and just basically knowing yourself. That's the most important thing
Yeah.
with martial
Mm-hmm.
arts. Martial arts is about self discovery and self mastery. It's not about being better than other people. It's not about winning all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yeah.
And losing, for a fighter, it's like, hey, I just put in so much fucking work just to look like a loser. That's what it
Yeah.
feels like when you
Yeah.
lose. Um, and you're like, wow, I just put in 6 months of the hardest work ever, and now people think I'm a loser.
Yeah. You didn't get anything out of it.
You didn't
Yeah.
get anything out, and it's not even like you didn't get anything out of it. It actually feels like you went down a step, because people,
Yeah.
like, if at least if you didn't lose, people would be like, all right, well, he's a fighter, and once they see that, it exposes that kind of vulnerability of it
Mm-hmm.
for you. So
Yeah.
there's also this big part of like, hey, when you lose, it's still a good thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you look
I've
at it in a
I've
correct way.
learned so much from the two fights that I've had, even though I lost. I've learned a lot about myself, and maybe I didn't like it as much as I thought I would.
Mm-hmm.
And I like coaching a lot more, honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, everybody's. It's a weird thing fighting, man. How did you? So when you fought, how did you feel? How did you feel like going into it versus afterwards?
Both times I was very excited, very like ready to go, amped up. And then after, it was like, wow, I actually did that. I actually had
Yeah.
a fight in front of hundreds, thousands of people or whatever. It's
Mm-hmm.
pretty crazy. And then it just kind of made me kind of like rethink, why am I fighting? Do I actually like it, or was it? I don't know. I was also really
Yeah.
young. I think I was like 19 when I had my first fight, so I was still a
Mm-hmm.
young young kid.
Oh yeah.
Um, and yeah, I don't know. I think I just took it because I've always wanted to have a fight ever since I was like a little kid. I just always wanted to have one fight,
Mm-hmm.
and um, just I don't know. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it, and
Yeah.
I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I just don't know if I was mentally ready, or I don't know, just because it takes a lot, to get into a cage and want to hurt someone.
Oh, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
So
You're just some random stranger too
yeah,
that you got no beef with.
yeah. You want to hurt them.
Yeah.
But then after, I don't know. I just realized, do I actually want to do it, or because I love training for it, like because I just love working out in general. So I
Hmm.
love like going through the grind, sparring, running or whatnot, just getting ready, getting your body conditioned for war. That's
Hmm.
like the fun part. That's what I like.
Yeah.
um, but I also like I also realized that I like helping other people too, because I was in as I was going like through college during that time too. I had another fight during college. I realized I was studying for my major, which was exercise science. I was kind of realizing that I like helping people. I think a little bit more through
Hmm.
like exercise, fitness, and martial arts.
For sure.
So that's when I was like, I don't know, and then I kind of fell into the commentating side, so I could still be around martial arts and like fighting and the fighters,
Hmm.
which I love to be around, that aura and stuff like that, and just still be alongside fighting and just be on the other side of the cage with analyzing fights, which I love to do. Just talk about fights, analyze them, and still be a part of that without, I don't know, getting beat up.
Yeah, that's the worst part,
Yeah, yeah.
huh? Yeah, thank you for having me on, Giuliano. Appreciate it. If anybody watching this wants to follow me on social media, my handle is Bare Knuckle Barry on Instagram, and the gym's name is Imperium Martial Arts. So that would be Imperium underscore Martial underscore Arts.
Yeah.
The gym's in North Reading. Anybody? I know your audience is probably a little bit more north, but we offer free trials. Anybody wants to come in for a day, check it out. If you're coming in from Maine, come on down. Just sign the waiver. You get to come in and train with us for free for a day, and we got a really good team over there. So I'm super excited to grow it up, and I'm excited to see what happens in this next coming year. We've grown a lot in the last 2 months since we've been open, and I'm really excited to see what happens next with it.
Nice, nice. That's awesome. I'm glad you were able to open up your own gym, kind of start, I don't know, teaching the younger generation, creating warriors. Other than that, I'm glad you came on. It was good to have you. You're a good friend. I look up to you a lot. Obviously starting from fighting and then opening up your own gym. That's one of my goals. Eventually,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to open up my own gym, martial arts
Oh
gym.
yeah,
That's what I
man. Yeah, I
eventually
mean, if you
want to
got any
do.
questions or need anything in the meantime, I'm happy to help out however I can.
Yeah, totally. Well, other than that, thank you for coming on. Um,
Anytime, brother. Thanks for having me.